A beautiful morning to you and welcome to the newspaper review right here at Prime Media TV. I am Ayo bringing you the news headline for today. And as always, I have quite a number of headlines to be reviewed with you. Today, we'll be looking at Sowore's release 14 key demands from Nigerians to Tinubu's administration ahead of the days of rage. So Omoyele Sowore, the convener of the revolution now, has released a list of 14 demands from Nigerians to President Bola Tinubu's administration aimed at addressing the country's governance. So this demand was actually published on Sowore's X account as a result of, and these demands are the result of his input towards the upcoming protests in Nigeria. And as you all know, we've been looking at the protests. We've been looking at a whole lot of backstories about that protest. And now, as at yesterday, he released this 14 demands of Nigerians. So we'll be looking at these 14 demands. We'll just look at few of it and the other parts will be brushed through. Now, very quickly, let's see some of this demand. Now, the number one demand by Sowore is to scrap the 1999 constitution and replace it with a people-made constitution for the Federal Republic of Nigeria through a sovereign national conference to be immediately followed by a national referendum. And we are looking at what this 1999 constitution is all about. So the 1999 constitution is all about it is the constitution that talks about the human right, and it was established on May 29, 1999. This constitution is basically talking about the fundamental human right of every human. That's the right to life, the right to dignity of persons, the right to fair hearing, the right to privacy, and so on. And this right is actually talking about it was actually the where we get to see the where power was separated, where we get to see the executive, the legislative power, and the judicial power. And this right also encompasses local government. And recently, we took the story on the local government autonomy. Probably the federal government has seen that these are part of the major things that Nigerians will be fighting for, hence why they've granted the local government autonomy. But then, on this 1999 constitution, there has been quite a number of discrepancies in it, and Nigerians has been asking question as to um um as to the ineffectiveness of this 1999 constitution. You see that despite that there is separation of power from the executive council to the legislative council to the judicial council. You see that most time you see that there's still lack of separation of power. And like I said earlier, probably Mr. President or the federal government has seen that this is part of the many things that Nigerians will be fighting for, ends why they granted the local government autonomy. So this is part of the many things that he said Nigerians will be fighting for. And he said beyond having a 1999 constitution, that there should be a constitution that is made by the people. And we have been looking at what democracy is all about in Nigeria, that democracy is not serving its true meaning in Nigeria. It is supposed to be the government of the people, the layman definition that we have. And we see that the people are not being served the way they ought to. So according to him, he said they should scrap it and replace it with a people made constitution. What are your thoughts on this? We'd like to hear from you. And then part of the other agenda is this number two agenda on the list is that he said they should toss the Senate arm of the Nigerian legislative system. So these are part of the many things that he mentioned out of the 14-point agenda. The second part of it is that they should toss the Senate arm of Nigerian legislative system, keep the House of Representatives, and make lawmaking a part-time endeavor. And we are trying to see reasons with him. We see that of what use is the presence of two bodies making law in the country. And in Nigeria currently as we speak, we have a total of 109 senators, 109 senators in Nigeria as a whole, 3 senators per state, multiplied by the 36 states that we have in the country. So we have 109 senators, and we have 360 members of the House of Representatives, each representing a federal constituencies. Now you say that most of those federal constituencies are still part of the state. They are coming from each of these 36 states. So why should there be existence of two separate entities making the same law in the country? And we discover that this is actually how money is being taken out in the country, because you have to pay, at least there's a monthly allowances that is going to this 109 senators monthly. And we see that the basic take home of a senator currently in Nigeria, though we are still going to take a separate story on that, but the basic salary of a senator in Nigeria is 2.4 million naira. Multiply that 2.4 million naira by 109 senators in the country. 2.4 million naira multiplied by 109 senators. Do you know the trillions of naira that will be spent on just 1 month's salary for senators? So, of what use is the presence of two senators? So that means if of what use is the presence of two bodies making the same law? That means we have 109 senators plus 360 House of Rep members, making a total of 469 lawmaking bodies in Nigeria. Why do we need that? Why that wastage? What are they discussing? What deliberations are they having that only the lawmakers cannot have? And another reason for this protest, according to Omoyele Sowore, is that this is not going to be basically to scrap the Senate, but even after scrapping the Senate, the lawmakers should be on part-time. You see, most of our lawmakers, they are doing this job full-time. They have no other businesses. And we have considered the fact that world leaders that we see, look at a president who recently left office in one of the known country. He left with a bicycle. The Britain president, if I'm not mistaken, he left the Senate, he left the White House on a bicycle. He didn't go out with anything. And that is to say that you are going there to serve the people, not to serve yourself, not to serve your stomach, not to serve your pocket. So why make politics a full-time job when you're actually there to serve the people? So making lawmakers work on part-time instead of making it a full-time endeavor. You see that they've actually turned politics into a career now. Some persons may say politics should be a career. Yes, but you are doing it basically to serve the people, not to enrich yourselves. That's why you see people, the fight to become councillors, then the fight continue to become chairman of their LCDAs, the fight continue to become the fight continues to become a governor, the fight continues to become a senator, and the fight continues to become a president. You see that this is becoming a personal ambition. So part of Omoyele Sowore's demand is that all of these lawmakers should be on part-time and not full-time. And another thing that Omoyele Sowore considered is that's the third part of it. He said Nigerian workers should be paid a minimum wage of nothing less than 250,000 naira monthly. And this is where I have my objection, because when a Nigerian worker is being paid 250,000 naira monthly, that means we are not working on how the economy will become stabilized. As good as we know that this is a good plan, it's a beautiful plan. On this table, we have considered that the prices of the salary of or the minimum wage of a worker in Nigeria should be increased. But then we discover that the more the basic salary of a worker is increasing, the more the cost of living will increase. And what has brought us to where we are today? What brought us to where we are today is as a result of this increments. Because the moment when you are earning 20,000 naira as your basic salary, you would know how to manage yourself. On how you know how to manage yourself for that 20,000 naira to satisfy you. Now, the moment you begin to earn times 10 of that money, let's say you're earning 200k, your demand increases. And don't be surprised that by the time, if peradventure, if peradventure, this is just an analysis, if peradventure the minimum wage of a Nigerian worker is increased to over 200,000 naira to 500,000 naira, do not be surprised that the vegetables that we buy in the market for 100 naira, for 200 naira, don't be surprised that we'll begin to buy our vegetables for 1,000 naira, because it is a Nigerian thing that the moment you hear that this thing as this is the amount this person is increased, you would want to benefit from it. And this is what has gotten us to where we are currently in the country. The moment you realize that, there was really no issues with minimum wage until we get to know our senator's salary. Imagine one senator going home with 2.4 million naira as a monthly take home, and a Nigerian worker is going home with just 30,000 naira. Then we begin to say, okay, that means we can actually get more. So I am not against the minimum wage being increased, but I think the fight should be for the economy to become stable. What has led us to where we are today? Because subsidy was removed, and on the long run we discovered that subsidy was not removed. The Nigerian government are still paying subsidy on fuel. So this is what has gotten us to where we are today. The prices of things skyrocketed, businesses are folding up, and the available ones that are selling, they are selling at a very demanding rate. So beyond increments of the minimum wage, I think the revolution, the fight, the protest should also be for the welfareism of the Nigerian workers. Because if the minimum wage is increased to 250,000 naira, trust me, you and I, or whoever that is working for a private sector, would also be demanding for such increase. Before you know it, there will be increased unemployment, because how many private sectors would want to pay such amount of money, especially if they are not earning as much as the demand of the workers? Do you see that? So the private sectors will be losing. The average Nigerian public worker would be benefiting from this, but the private sector would be deprived of this. So beyond increments, I think they should go ahead to fight for the welfareism of the Nigerian worker. What led us to where we are? The prices of wealth should come back. What led to the increase of prices of things in the market? It should come back. So when all these prices are reduced, then we can know that even with your 100,000 naira, with your 150,000 naira as salary, even with your 50k as salary, you can still afford basic things that you need as a person. So let's move on to the fourth thing that Omoyele Sowore mentioned. He mentioned that there should be investment, there should be heavy investment on education, and Nigerian students should be given grants and not loan. He said aggressively pursue free and compulsory education for children across Nigeria. So there was a recent analysis by the United Nations where they said only 0.7% of the Nigerian budget, of the 2024 budget in Nigeria, was allocated to education. 0.7%. And according to the United Nations, they said if they really want education to be a thing in Nigeria, they should increase the budget to 22%. And since then, the Nigerian government did not say anything to that. And you see that over time, there has really not been investment in education in Nigeria. If you go to some secondary schools in Nigeria, you see that their roofs has gone out. Their roofs, they don't have enough seats to sit down. There's the teachers to teach them are not even being paid. There's nothing to boost their morale to come to class to come and impart the children. There are no infrastructures for these children to have sound education in quotes. There are no facilities. You go to some government schools, there are no laboratories, there are no libraries and all of those things. So much investment should be made on education. This is the demand, and the question, as always, is the question is, how are we going to ensure that as we are clamoring for this protest, we are going to infuse all of these things in it? Because on the long run, you discover that the general problem for Nigerian is to end hunger. Now let's move on to, this is going to be the last that we'll be analyzing in the 14 agendas that Omoyele Sowore outlined. He said there should be reforms of security agencies to stop continuous human rights violation and application of security agencies, and enhance the physical security of Nigerian citizens. And we see that the security sector in Nigeria has collapsed. It is not working. I mean, just some days ago, we had in Lagos that a policeman raped a 17-year-old right there in the police station. This has further shown how inhumane even the security sectors that are supposed to be protecting our lives are. This is telling us how inhuman that they can be, how bad it has become that some of these police officers, their mental health has been affected so much that they begin to act like a beast. And we see that the problem in Nigeria is not the availability of personnel in the security sector, but it is the inavailability of intelligence. There are no intelligence measures on how to curb insecurity in in the country, and it has become a problem that the same thing has been happening to us back to back, and we don't know how to curb it. There has been cases of banditry for over how many years in the country. The problem is lying there in our faces, and we have not been able to deploy intelligence to curb this insecurity. And the question is not on how to do this thing. The question is in the fact that if the people who are heading these security sectors are ready to put in the work, if they are not majorly occupying this position just to get the money, just to get the benefits, just to get the name, and to just enjoy all of the benefits that comes with being in that position. So we see that there are quite a whole lot of things that Nigerians are fighting for in this revolution. They mention prices of goods, commodities in the market. They mention the price of fuel. They mentioned that past and present leaders should be probed. These are many, but these five are just the core things that we need to look into as part of our fight for this protest that is coming up by late July to early August. So on this conversation, we'll be taking a pause here, but we would like to hear your thoughts in the chat box, in the comment section. What are your thoughts on all of this fight that the Nigerian youth, especially the Nigerian people, the concerned Nigerians are going out to protest for? Do well to send in your thoughts to us in the comment section. So we'll be going on a quick break now. As soon as we get back, we'll dive into another conversation. Please stay with us.